In her heyday, Leisure World resident Lucy Cook was known as the jeweler to the stars. How did you start your career in the film industry?
My husband's family were in Burbank, and we stayed there 3 years, and then he left, and his cousins used to work for Joseph and his family, and I applied there. That was my first job.
Did you already know how to make jewelry?
I had started working in El Paso when I was a teenager in a 5 and 10 cent store. They put me in the jewelry counter to sell jewelry, and then they would send me upstairs to repair, because the jewelry comes apart, the rings open, and they started teaching me how to close rings.
So let's talk about Joseph. So who was Joseph?
Joseph was from Austria, and so he was interested in the jewelry business.
Through a Hollywood connection, Joseph began a flourishing career. His eye for proper period pieces made him a top jeweler in the film industry. This company, Joseph of Hollywood, they worked with the biggest stars in the film industry.
He was the biggest manufacturer of jewelry for the movie industry.
However, a tragic plane crash took Joseph's life.
Joseph died in 1948. So I started working in 1956, which is almost 10 years after he was gone.
Joseph's wife ran the company from then on.
Joan Castle Joseph. She only had one son, and he was 11 months old. And she kept the business. So when I applied, and she was running the business.
The company was also diversified, making lucrative parts for the military and jewelry.
She was not as interested in the jewelry as she was in the aircraft parts, because the aircraft parts brought more money in. So there was different people in charge of the jewelry. And when I came in, I didn't know much about jewelry except what I had learned in the 10-cent store. And they taught me how to solder, how to plate, how to do the whole thing. And then eventually I had as many as 9 people working. But the aircraft parts, they had 40, 50, 60 people.
I see.
So Mrs. Joseph was very busy with her, and she let me run the department.
And at 90 years young, she remembers it all.
I did everything. Eventually, I even had to order the gold. I used to buy about an ounce of gold every 3 months. I bought a lot of gold, and I had to teach the people how to work.
Within this nondescript building in Burbank, the magic happened. Talk about some of the tools that you were working with to make this jewelry.
Typical jewelry tools, hammers and saw, the hand saws to cut the metals. And the plating was sodium cyanide, which is very poisonous. And we put it in hot water and make it 90 degrees hot.
Yes.
And put the gold pieces in there to plate.
Yeah.
It's a process. And then we had to rub the gold to make it shiny with our hands. We didn't use any tools, so eventually my hands, I don't have any fingerprints.
Who are some of the key actors, actresses, or stars that you worked with that you made jewelry for?
Well, I made jewelry for Elizabeth Taylor, Lucille Ball, Jane Russell, all the movie stars in the 70s and 80s. I deal with studios, and I mostly made whatever they sent in. They'd send a a print of what they wanted.
And Joseph's was creative in maximizing profits.
Trays and trays in the wall. The studios came by, they would send a representative from the studio to get certain things, and I would go through the trays and show them, and they would pick, and I would write it down and rent it. And a lot of times they got stolen. Even the actors, there was one actress, I don't remember her name, they took it out of her suitcase that she was taking it home.
Talk about the quality of the jewelry. This is pretty expensive, or was it inexpensive?
It was expensive. One piece of Joseph's is $300-400. Not like real gold, but that's expensive. And now it's worth more because with time they have raised the prices, especially with the price of gold. Because the price of gold, I used to buy an ounce of gold for $1,000.
The company's jewelry division also expanded beyond films.
We made jewelry for bullocks, and I would go to see the buyers and show my pieces. I sold to different people that collected. They were collectors, and they would want a copy of something that was in a movie. And I had one lady that lived here in Leisure World, and she bought a lot of jewelry, and she would come and she would take me to lunch. She was a very good friend.
You raised 2 children, and you worked all those years. You have to be pretty happy with your career and how your children worked out.
It worked out. My children, they liked to study. They were very good children.
For over 12 years, Lucy has lived in Leisure World and continues her favorite craft. Do you still make jewelry?
Don't make the jewelry the way Joseph did, because these are not castings. This is just beads that I put together, and then I buy the findings and just put them together. And I go to the sales around here, and I do pretty well. I started working in 1956. That's a long time.